What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Miami Miles. My name's Mickey, and guys, welcome back to Miami. I have got a hell of a video planned today, boys. Woo! Oh man, that's right, baby. Now, all of you Porsche haters are probably like,
oh, Mickey, not another Porsche video.
Listen, Johnny, look at this. Look at this. The 991.1 GT3 against the 991.2 GT3. Guys, finally, my dreams on this channel are starting to be realized. Today, I'm going to be comparing both cars. My dream car. 8 years ago, this car made me fall in love with Porsche. I'm talking about that Chris Harris review on the Drive channel where he said it was such a step up on the 997 GT3 that he absolutely fell in love. That being said, he hated the fact that they got rid of the manual transmission for this generation. Well, guess what? 991.2 brought that little stick shift right back. But what are the main differences between these two cars that makes this comparison so interesting? Namely, both cars do not share the same power plant. This car has a 3.8 liter, again, Carrera derived, race-inspired engine that makes 475 horsepower. That car has the 4 liter from the Cup car that makes 493 brake horsepower. This car, the 991.1 GT3, did not come with a manual transmission, whereas that generation does. As you guys know at this stage, that is my baby. And I have yet to find a car that's more fun to drive than this. And I drove that GT4 a couple weeks ago and I absolutely loved it. But I was like, look, for 140 grand, because those GT4s now, with the market being the way that it is, are $140,000. What else could there be, huh? Oh, well, that thing is $140,000 to $150,000. And seeing as this engine back there, that little 3.8 liter engine was so volatile when it first came out, it had an issue with a piston connecting rod bolt that used to make these things catch on fire. So Porsche, to guarantee the satisfaction of the customer, like they always do, they gave you a 10-year warranty on the powertrain. That means that if you purchase a 2015 one of these, you are covered through 2025. A hell of a proposition considering that it's the same price as a damn GT4. And I can tell you, having it driven here to my house, it is so damn good. It is so good. I can't even tell you. You can't comprehend. I can't convey how good this thing is. But first, guys, before we go for a ride, let's go around the outside of these cars. Let's check out the differentiation in style from one generation to the other, starting with the 991.1 GT3. Right away, guys, you can see the difference in the front fascia. Most Porsche purists would tell you that that is better looking than this. Because as you guys can see here, this front fascia has these little plastic components. That one in there, that one in there, and that one around there. And they're like, oh, it doesn't look good. But guys, honestly, to my eyes, it's hard to pick a car that looks better, right? And as you move up a little bit, you'll see that on the 991.2, I think this vent is a little bit bigger than on the 991.1. Obviously, this one was spec'd with the base lights, and that one has the dynamic lighting system, which was a more expensive option. As we come around the side, you'll see that the wheels are the gloss black. I don't know if they're forged units, but they're the same on both. The difference is that that's matte black or satin black, and these are gloss black. Now, around the side, look at these side skirts. They're actually quite pronounced, particularly when you compare them to those in the 991.2. They're actually much wider, much thicker, right? Look at those things, and look at these. A little bit thinner, a little bit smaller. But the question is, which one looks better? And you know what? I'd have to give it to the 991.1. Now, as we swing around the back, we are gonna see the wing, right? As you know, I've got the touring version of the 991.2, but look at how good that 991.1 wing looks. And something that I just realized about this car is the fact that it has this sexy looking vent right here, and that car does not. As you guys know, the touring has the vent above, but as you can see right here, there's no vent. So that's damn sexy on the 991.1. And then down below, the rear diffuser definitely has some differences. They're not vented on this car, so you can see there's no vents. Whereas on the 991.2, there are vents, right? You can see the vents, and you can even see through these vents. That's really nice on this car. So, which is the better looking car? Honestly, this does look a teeny bit older than that. Nonetheless, they're both beautiful cars, and you would be hard pressed, right, to pick one of these, especially one with a PDK, over one of those with a $50,000 price delta. These are going for about 140, 150 grand on the used market right now. And one of these with the PDK, guys, with the wing, is going for $200,000. There is no way, unequivocally, that this car, right, is 50 grand better. Or is it? Let's go for a drive, guys, and find out. So first, I'm gonna jump in the 991.1 GT3. Listen to this. Oh, it slid out! This thing is a rabid animal! Oh, brakes. Yes! Oh my God, guys, I get so excited every single time I drive a GT car, but it feels like every time I get into one of these things, they get better and better and better. Now guys, before I tell you all about this car, let me start with what this car means to me. That's right, man. This is a legend car for me. This is a car I held at a pedestal for a large portion of my life. From the time it was announced and it started to be reviewed in 2013, 2014, I always thought to myself, what do I have to do to get myself one of these cars? Back when I had no money, back when I had no business, back when I had no potential, this thing gave me hope. I promised myself, Mickey, you will work as hard as possible to get your hands on one of these. So guys, I'm in a fortunate position today to drive the hell out of this thing. It's such a good car. Even now, even 7, 8 years later, it is so damn good. This is way better than a GT4, ladies and gentlemen. Even at the age discrepancy that there is, this thing is an absolute masterpiece. Let's talk about this car's power plant. Listen to that. Hold on. The sound, believe it or not, sounds so much different to the 4-liter in my GT3. You could never imagine that a power plant from two cars wherein a generation is the only thing that separates them could be so different. This thing sounds metallic, like it sounds so much more high-strung. It sounds metallic and it gives you this little whir, right? I don't know if you call it a whir, it's like this metallic grind of the gears, and it just sounds so good, so damn good. So let me tell you a little bit about the power plant, guys. It's a 3.8 liter producing 475 horsepower. When they tested this car, it ran the quarter mile in 11.2 at 123 miles an hour. 0 to 60 is roughly in 3.1 seconds. It's honestly one of the funnest accelerating cars I've ever driven. And the funny thing is that when you accelerate, it kicks out the back just a little bit, showing you just how much torque that 3.8 liter has. Oh man, it's so good. It's so good. Now obviously, as you've probably read in all the publications and all the forums, it is not as torquey as the 991.2 GT3. It definitely doesn't have the torque, but up high, you would be hard pressed to notice a difference. Oh my goodness, as it approaches that 9,000 RPM redline, it's got some of that same ferocity as the 991.2 GT3. Really, you can tell that they're related, but at the same time, they're two completely different engines. And this thing is a hell of an engine, particularly when you think about this PDK. Guys, this PDK is almost telepathic in the way that it interprets your inputs. Like, I talked about how good it was in the GT4. I feel like this thing gives you a little more aggressive kick in the ass when you hit the upshift. Watch this, 8,000 RPM. Truck. Be careful with the truck, Mickey. Oh, this PDK! When this PDK came out, everybody wanted a manual. All the Porsche purists were like,
Oh, we want a manual in a Porsche.
Chris Harris, back when he did the initial review on this car, that was his only gripe. He was like, why didn't it come with the manual? Well, Porsche had found out at the time that automatics would be so much more sought after, and they'd be able to sell so much more cars if they put the PDK in the car. So they completely omitted the manual. And it wasn't until the 911R that the manual came back with a vengeance. But at that stage, the engine had been switched from this 3.8 liter volatile flat six to that 4 liter. And sorry for my voice cracking, but it was switched to that 4 liter. And at that stage, the 991.1 generation GT3 was done. What I'm trying to say is that this thing, even though it's got a PDK, it's an absolute work of art. It is so good. It is so damn good. And you would be hard pressed to find something more engaging than this. Like, even relative to my 991.2, it's engaging. Like, look at how it kicks the back out. Oh my God. And that's just getting here on the freeway where I can't do shit. Oh man, it's so good. And I think that excitement translates so well to the handling. Right at the time, this car fixed the issues with the 997 and its turn-in. The 997 was slow to turn in. It required a tremendous amount of effort and force. Hold on. So yeah, the 997 required a tremendous amount of effort and force, and what they did to fix that is they added a wider track in this car. They took the front end and completely redesigned it, and they added rear wheel steer for the very first time in a GT3 product, or in a GT product. And those things, I can tell you unequivocally, have made this car feel so agile, even in traffic here. And I talk about this all the time. When you switch lanes, the car just teleports from one lane to the other. It's as if you're Goku, right? And you're doing one of these things, it's just teleporting over one lane. That telepathy isn't just with the front end and the way it turns into the apex of a corner, it's with this steering. This steering is borderline better than that my 991.2. It is so quick. The way that you can apply a little bit of force to the steering and the car reacts instantaneously. Let me calm down just a little bit. What a steering rack. So, where are we so far in this very emotional, very exciting review? The 3.8 liter is a savage. Don't let anybody get it twisted and tell you anything different. Up top, it pulls just as hard as the 4 liter in my car. You can definitely feel that it's down a little bit on power. It's down a little bit on torque, but it does not lose any of the spirit of the GT3 car brand. And that's the same thing with this transmission. This PDK is so good and it's so engaging that every time you pull an upshift at 9,000 RPM, you lose traction to the rear wheels. And that makes it so much damn fun. The only differences, right, that I've noticed so far that may not be everyone's favorite when they drive this car, number one is the fact that it is definitely more rough of a ride than my 991.2. For sure, it is a rougher ride. It is a ride that requires a little more patience, right, in the way that it absorbs bumps. Like, you have to be willing to put up with a little more punishment in this car relative to my 991.2. And for people like me, for crazy people like me, we absolutely love it. That might not be the favorite thing in the world for somebody who likes a little more refinement in the ride. Me, I like craziness. I like aggressiveness. I like a car that feels like it's gonna fall apart, yet it's gonna keep you safe with its unlimited handling capabilities and its delicious, juicy power delivery. So guys, overall, a hell of a car that you and I would both be hard pressed to notice a difference between this and the 991.2, particularly if you are going with the PDK. I would recommend, guys, to save the 50K, right? Sell the house, sell the wife, sell everything, sell the kid, and go get you one of these. Anyways, guys, let's head back to the 991.2 and go for a ride. I want you guys, ladies and gentlemen, to listen to this. Oh, this let's get right into it. Like, I know this car, I've owned it for the better part of 6 months. What is there different about this relative to the first generation GT3? Well, right away, let's start with the ride. This car feels a lot less like a race car and a lot more like a GT car. The way, hold on, it rides over bumps is just that much more controlled than the 991.1 generation. That car, when you rode over bumps, felt like a jarring race car. This car feels, honestly, like a luxury 911, borderline 911 turbo. And I don't know if it's because this is a touring, but as far as I'm concerned and as far as everything I've read, this suspension is the same as that in the 991.2 winged version of the GT3. So that ride, right, makes for a very different personality when driving the car, right? And I think that personality translates itself so well into the steering. So the steering in that car, even though it was smooth and precise and the car darted in from lane to lane, and when going onto an on-ramp, onto the freeway, it darted into the apex of the corner. This steering is a little bit harder. What do I mean by harder? Meaning that you have to apply just a tad bit more force, and it's a little bit more responsive at the top of the rack. So in that car, I'd have to turn this much angle to get the car to turn in. In this car, I've got to turn about that much angle to get the car to turn in. Now, that feeling, I don't know if I like it more. Like I mentioned in the previous car, I do love it, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if it's any better. Check this out. Personality in this car, something that the 991.1 GT3 doesn't have. That car just wants to assassinate you, and it feels like a race car the whole time. This car feels gentle, like a GT car, until you put your foot down. So check out the handling in the rear. Oh boy, oh boy. So what are the differences, you're probably asking yourself? What are the differences between the two engines? Well, guys, this is a 4-liter, and on paper it produces about 18 more horsepower and 20 some odd more pound-feet of torque. Not a crazy improvement, but I can tell you unequivocally, you feel it. Like at these same locations, I was going about a good 5 miles an hour slower in the 991.1 GT3. You can definitely feel that this thing pulls harder a pop and that it has more torque through the lower edges of the rev range. In the same breath though, the sound here is drastically different than in that car. To be honest, in that car, the sound was more high-pitched, right? It was more like a saw sawing through a big-ass 2x4. It's so much more raspy in this, right? In this, it's so much deeper. And I don't know which one sounds better. I can just tell you that they sound different. And at the top of the rev range, from 8 to 9, both cars pull just as savagely hard as one another. Now, guys, it's not just about the power and the sound and the experience. Like, it's really hard for me to pick a winner in terms of the engine. If I had to, I'd probably pick this one. But you have to think about the transmission as well. This manual is so good, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, it's so much torque in this thing. Brakes, brakes, brakes. Turn it. Oh man, this thing makes your palms sweaty when you want it to, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely. Let's talk about the transmission. Obviously, the PDK is super fun because you can extract the most out of the car on a day-to-day basis and not have to worry about shifting and having a clutch to engage. In a PDK, it feels like you're way more in control of a car. In here, you have to disconnect your hand from the steering wheel and onto this in order to shift, which makes it feel like you're riding a little bit more on edge. The GT3, the 991.1 variant, felt a little bit more safe and secure at speed. This thing feels just a little bit more sketchy. Nonetheless, a hell of an experience. A hell of an experience.
A few moments later.
That was a 115 kilometers here on the freeway, but dang man, it's so much faster. So guys, all those things have basically told you absolutely nothing about the winner comparison. Both cars, ladies and gentlemen, are spectacular. Both cars are masterpieces in their own right, and I would love to own both and basically switch them back and forth to learn them a little bit more. Now guys, if I did not have $50,000 right to spend between this and the 991.1, I would get the 991.1. That's 150 grand versus 200 in a winged variant of this car. Definitely. Not only, right, is it a little bit more raw, does it sound just a little bit better at the tippy top of the rev range, but it gives you 95% of the experience everywhere else for $50,000 less. Like, it would take someone crazy like me on streets to notice the difference between the two cars. So I would say buy that. But if you have the money, okay, if you have the money, skip all that shit. Buy a touring with a manual gearbox because it's so damn good. Now I can't wait, guys, to drive the 992. That's coming soon. I'll have that drive review for you in probably by the end of December, maybe early January. I think that's when the car gets in roughly. So I can't wait to hopefully drive a car that's even more emotional than this. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, this is the winner of the comparison. Unless you need the 50K, at which point that's the winner. Regardless, go down below, give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you. That's right, baby. You next video. Take care.